Humans have been fascinated by Mars for centuries, often imagining it as a mysterious world full of possibilities. Long before we sent spacecraft to explore it, people looked at Mars through telescopes and dreamed of life beyond Earth. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, some scientists thought they saw canals on Mars, leading to the idea that intelligent life might exist there. This inspired a wave of books and movies like The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, A Princess of Mars and its sequels by Edgar Rice Burroughs, and The Martian by Andy Weir. Even today, Mars continues to capture our imagination as space agencies explore it with robots and plan future missions that may one day send humans to the Red Planet. So, with that in mind, here are 10 things you should know about Mars. One, Mars has the tallest volcano in the solar system. When someone mentions volcanoes, you'll most likely imagine a large mountain on Earth with lava, smoke and ash pouring out of the top of it. However, Earth is not the only place in the solar system that has volcanoes. Mars is home to Olympus Mons, the biggest volcano in our solar system, which is thought to have last erupted around 25 million years ago. On Earth, Mount Everest is around 8,848 metres tall. Olympus Mons towers at nearly 22,000 metres. That would be like stacking 2.5 Everests on top of each other. It's not just the height which is impressive. Olympus Mons covers an area of around 300,000 square kilometres. That's roughly the same size as Italy. So why is Olympus Mons so huge? Mars has only about 38% of Earth's gravity. That means lava flows farther before stopping, and it also allowed Olympus Mons to keep growing, making it a huge shield volcano hundreds of kilometres wide. Mars also lacks plate tectonics, so volcanic activity stayed over the same hotspot for millions of years. Recent research suggests the volcano might still be geologically active, with volcanic resurfacing potentially having happened just 2 million years ago. When thinking about how long Mars has been there, 2 million years in geological time is practically yesterday. 2. Mars has the largest canyon system. Not only is Mars home to the largest volcano in the solar system, it also boasts Valles Marineris, a canyon system which is over 4,000 kilometres long, which is about the width of the United States, and up to 7 kilometres deep in places. In comparison, the Grand Canyon is only 446 kilometres long and around 2 kilometres deep, which is tiny in comparison. Scientists believe Valles Marineris may have formed when Mars's crust cracked open, possibly due to the nearby volcanoes like Olympus Mons stretching and pulling the surface. Other parts may have formed through landslides, erosion and ancient water flow. Valles Marineris gives scientists clues about Mars's geology, possible past water and how the planet's surface has changed over time. Some areas might even have been good places for ancient Martian life. 3. A Mars day is surprisingly similar to Earth. A day on Earth is determined by how long it takes the Earth to complete a single spin on its axis, which is 24 hours. A Martian day is called a sol, and it lasts about 24 hours and 39 minutes. That means after an Earth day is over, Mars is just 39 minutes behind. That might not seem like much, but over time it adds up. For rover engineers, it meant keeping to Martian time during the early Spirit and Opportunity missions. Although the length of a day or sol is very similar, the years on each planet are very different. A year is determined by how long it takes a planet to complete one single orbit of the Sun. For Earth, that is 365.25 days, which is why we have a leap year every 4 years. Mars, however, takes almost twice as long to orbit the Sun, as a year on Mars is around 687 Earth days. Earth's seasons are a result of the planet sitting at a 23.5-degree tilt on its axis. Mars has a tilt of 25.2 degrees on its axis, so it also has seasons. However, due to the longer Martian years, each season lasts for around 6 months. However, Martian winters and summers differ in length. Northern spring and summer are nearly 200 days longer than autumn and winter, which affects dust storm patterns and solar energy. 4. Dust ended the life of a Mars rover. Dust storms on Mars can be incredibly huge, with some being strong enough to cover the entire planet. Even though Mars has a much thinner atmosphere than Earth, the surface is covered in fine powdery dust that's easy for the wind to pick up. When the sun heats the surface unevenly, it creates big temperature changes that cause strong winds. These winds lift dust into the air, and because there's no rain on Mars to wash it away, the dust can stay floating for weeks or even months. Once the dust is in the air, it actually traps heat from the sun, warming up the atmosphere even more. That extra warmth creates even stronger winds, which kick up even more dust, kind of like a loop that keeps going and going. That's how a small storm can grow into a massive one that wraps around the planet. These storms are a big problem for solar-powered rovers. Opportunity was a robotic rover sent to Mars by NASA in 2004. It was only supposed to last 90 days, but it kept working for over 14 years, which was an amazing achievement. In June 2018, a huge dust storm covered much of Mars. The sky got so dark that sunlight couldn't reach Opportunity's solar panels, so it couldn't recharge its batteries. The rover went into sleep mode to try to save energy. NASA sent over 1,000 signals to try to wake it up, but Opportunity never responded. In February 2019, after months of silence, NASA officially said the mission was over. Scientists are still studying these powerful storms to understand how they work and how we can deal with them in future Mars missions. 5. Mars was once wet. Scientists have found lots of evidence that Mars used to have water on its surface a long time ago. Pictures taken by orbiters and rovers show dry riverbeds, valleys, and lake-like basins, which look very similar to ones we see on Earth that were formed by flowing water. Some craters even have channels that appear to have been carved by rivers, showing that liquid water once moved across the surface of Mars. Rovers like Opportunity, Curiosity, and Perseverance have discovered minerals and rocks that only form in the presence of water, such as clay, salt, and hematite. These are clear signs that water wasn't just around, it stayed long enough to change the chemistry of the ground. Curiosity even explored an area called Gale Crater, which scientists believe was once a lake. All this evidence tells us that ancient Mars had a much warmer and wetter climate, and it may have even had the right conditions for life. Today, liquid water can't survive on the surface because of low pressure, but ice can be found at the poles and in subsurface layers. In 2018, radar from ESA's Mars Express showed a subsurface lake under the South Pole around 20 kilometers wide. Mars orbiters also spotted recurring dark streaks that some interpret as briny, salty water seeping down slopes. In 2017, NASA confirmed global subsurface ice within a few meters of the surface at mid-latitudes. That's potentially trillions of tons of water hiding underground. 6. Mars has twin moons. Mars has two small moons named Phobos and Deimos. Unlike our moon, which is big and bright, these moons are tiny and look like big rocky potatoes. Phobos is a bigger one, but it's still much smaller than Earth's moon. Deimos is even smaller and a bit farther away from Mars. Scientists think these moons might be captured asteroids that got stuck in Mars's gravity a long time ago. Phobos is a very interesting moon because it orbits really close to Mars, so close that it goes around the planet about 3 times every day. This means Phobos moves across the sky faster than our moon does around Earth. It also has a lot of craters, with one giant crater called Stickney that looks like a huge dent on its surface. Deimos, on the other hand, moves more slowly and has a smoother appearance with fewer craters. Both moons are important to study because they can teach us about the history of Mars and the space around it. Scientists want to explore Phobos and Deimos more closely to learn about their makeup and how they formed. In the future, these moons might even be used as stepping stones for humans traveling to Mars itself. So, even though they are small, Phobos and Deimos hold big mysteries for space explorers. 7. You would weigh less on Mars. Gravity is a force that pulls objects toward a planet. The bigger an object is, the greater its force of gravity. Since Mars is smaller than Earth, it doesn't pull as strongly. In fact, Mars has only about 38% of Earth's gravity. That means if you weigh 100 kilograms on Earth, you would only weigh about 38 kilograms on Mars. You're not actually losing any mass, so you won't physically be any smaller. You're just experiencing less pull from the planet beneath you. While that might sound fun at first, lower gravity can cause problems if people are ever to live or work on Mars. Our muscles and bones are used to Earth's gravity, and when we don't use them as much, they get weaker. That's why astronauts who stay in space for a long time have to exercise every day. On Mars, people would need special workout equipment to stay strong and healthy. It might look like a treadmill with straps or resistance bands to help keep the muscles in shape, like the exercise equipment used on board the International Space Station. Lower gravity also creates unique engineering challenges. For example, buildings and vehicles wouldn't need to be as strong to support weight, but they might be more likely to tip over or float away if not anchored properly. Rovers, tools and machines would need to be redesigned so they work well in lighter gravity. Engineers also have to think about how rockets launch and land, because gravity affects how much fuel and power they need. Even daily tasks would feel different. Walking on Mars would be more like bouncing or hopping, and carrying heavy objects would be much easier. Well, that sounds good. It also means that everything we design for Mars, spacesuits, homes, vehicles, need to work in a whole new kind of environment. That's part of what makes exploring Mars both exciting and challenging. 8. There are blue sunsets on the red planet. The sky on Mars looks very different from what we see on Earth. Instead of a bright blue sky during the day, the Martian sky often appears a dusty yellowish brown or butterscotch colour. This is because the thin atmosphere on Mars is filled with fine red dust from the surface. Sunlight hits the dust particles and scatters in a way that gives the sky its unusual colour. Since Mars doesn't have as much air as Earth, it can't scatter the blue light the same way, so we don't get that familiar blue sky. One of the most surprising things about the Martian sky is what happens during sunrise and sunset. On Earth, our sunsets are often red or orange, but on Mars it's the opposite. Sunrise and sunsets are bluish. That's because the red dust in the Martian atmosphere actually blocks red light from reaching your eyes, allowing more blue light to come through when the sun is low on the horizon. So instead of a red sunset, you'd see a soft blue glow around the setting sun. These sky colours are not just pretty, they also tell scientists a lot about the Martian atmosphere. By studying how light changes on Mars, scientists can learn about the size of dust particles and how storms move across the planet. Sky colour is even important for future astronauts who will need to understand how light and dust affect visibility and solar power. So, even though the skies on Mars are very different, they're just as important and beautiful as Earth's. 9. Robots rule Mars. For now. Right now, robots are the true explorers and rulers of Mars. Since it's too dangerous and expensive to send humans just yet, we've sent smart, tough machines instead. These robots come in many forms: rovers like Curiosity and Perseverance, orbiters that circle the planet, and even tiny helicopters like Ingenuity. They explore the surface, take photos, study rocks, and search for signs of ancient life. Without these robotic pioneers, we wouldn't know nearly as much about Mars as we do today. These robots are like our eyes and hands on another planet. They can go places we can't, handle extreme cold, and survive powerful dust storms. Rovers drive across rocky terrain, drill into the ground, and send data all the way back to Earth. Orbiters help guide the rovers and map the planet from above. Even the Ingenuity helicopter, which was only supposed to fly 5 times, has now flown dozens of missions, proving that powered flight is possible on another world. But someday, humans will join them. The work robots are doing now is helping scientists plan for future missions where people might build homes, grow food, and explore Mars in person. Perseverance carries MOXIE, a tech demo turning Martian CO2 into oxygen. It made its first 5 grams of oxygen in April 2021. That's only a few breaths, but it proved we can produce oxygen for future missions. Until then, robots rule Mars. 10. Space architects are essential for humanity visiting Mars. Space architects are essential for sending humans to visit Mars because they design the living and working spaces that will keep astronauts safe during their journey. A trip to Mars takes many months, so astronauts need a spacecraft that's more than just a rocket. It has to be a small moving home. Space architects help design the interior of the spacecraft to make sure there's room for sleeping, eating, working, and exercising, all while keeping everything tightly organised and protected from the dangers of space. Once the astronauts arrive on Mars, they'll need a shelter that can protect them from harsh conditions like extreme cold, low air pressure, and harmful radiation. That's where space architects come in again. They plan and design Martian habitats that can be set up quickly, sometimes even by robots before the astronauts arrive. These habitats need to be strong, easy to build, and able to hold life support systems that provide air, water, and warmth. They also need to feel comfortable and reduce stress, since living on Mars can be lonely and challenging. Space architects also help plan how humans will move around and explore once they land. They design rovers, labs, and storage areas that make it easier for astronauts to do science and stay safe. Without space architects, we wouldn't know how to build the shelters, tools, and spaces needed for humans to survive the long trip and stay on Mars. Their creative thinking and smart designs are key to making a successful human visit to the Red Planet possible. There are two final thoughts I'd like to leave you with. 1. Humans have been fascinated by Mars for a long time, imagining what the planet may once have looked like and what kind of life could have lived there, if any. Piece by piece, the mysteries of the Red Planet have been revealed through various missions by different space agencies, and we now have more clues about what the planet may have been like. That said, there is still a lot left to learn, which brings us to point 2. There are plans by various space agencies and private companies to send humans to Mars in the near future. From space architects to material scientists, and from engineers to energy experts, not to mention astronauts, a lot of different types of people will have to come together to make it possible. And who knows, perhaps you could be one of them. Thank you for watching this Things You Should Know video with me, your guest host here on Mars TV, Mr. N, from the YouTube channel STEM with Mr. N. If you liked the video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay up to date on all future Mars TV content. And be sure to visit my channel, STEM with Mr. N, for more 10 Things You Should Know About videos, STEM demonstrations, and other STEM education content. This has been Mars TV and STEM with Mr. N, exploring 10 things you should know about Mars.